It's been a while since we've had a long-form adventure with the classic cartoon cat Garfield. Of course, he is still in the daily newspaper strips, but in terms of a movie, it's been many, many years. Let's talk about the Garfield movie. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the Garfield movie. This is in theaters right now and features Chris Pratt as the voice of the classic cartoon cat. And he, of course, did Mario last year, so taking all of the 80s staples, I guess, and doing voices for their feature-length versions. We last had Garfield on the big screen with the Bill Murray films in 2004, and I think maybe 2007 was the other one. And the first one was named almost the exact same as this. That was called Garfield the Movie, and this is the Garfield movie. So, kind of lazy with the title there. But in any event, before I launch into the specifics of this film, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here on the channel, and just about every day I try to post something new. So there's always a lot going on here. And with that in mind, please consider subscribing. Click that like button, comment below. All that stuff, of course, helps the channel out. And check out the playlist on the homepage as well. That will streamline your experience, whether you're looking for specifically movies or TV shows. And I chop it up by the year as well. So all the 2024 stuff is together as well. All right, so I mentioned Chris Pratt also in this. We've got voice work from Samuel L. Jackson, Nicholas Hoult, Hannah Waddingham, Ving Rhames, Cecily Strong, Bowen Yang, Brett Goldstein, Snoop Dogg, a lot of people involved in this. And Chris Pratt, of course, like I said, is Garfield himself. Nicholas Hoult voices John. And then Samuel L. Jackson voices Garfield's long-lost father named Vic. And we see in a flashback right in the beginning, in the very first scene, Garfield's basically breaking the fourth wall, talking to us, the audience, and saying, hey, let me tell you a story of how I got here. And so we learn a new background. Of course, we've had several different backgrounds for Garfield over the years, both in TV specials, and I forget if I never saw the second Bill Murray movie, but I forget if the first one, went into his background at all. But I think even the TV show Garfield and Friends from the 80s and 90s, I think that had its own background canon or whatever. So anyway, this kind of gives us another inside look at the history of Garfield and when he was a baby and all of that. But anyway, so he reconnects with his long-lost father, Vic, and is forced into basically joining him on this big adventure along with, of course, the great Odin in tow. And that's pretty much where we are with this movie. Plot-wise, I think that's all we'll talk about. This was directed by Mark Dindal, whose name I did not know, but I think we've all probably seen something he's been a part of. He directed The Emperor's New Groove and Chicken Little for Disney, but before that, he was an animator, and he helped with animation as far back as the early 80s with Disney. So, you've undoubtedly seen something that he's done, whether he directed it or had, work in the animation department. So, look, this movie is sort of all over the place, and I'm not a preview guy. I try not to watch previews, but I did see a preview for this in front of Wonka when I took my nephew to that, and I just thought, oh man, this doesn't look very good. The animation looks okay. Chris Pratt doing the voice, I don't know. We just had him doing Mario, which I admit I was wrong on him as Mario. When I heard he was going to do Mario, I said, that's not great. But that was a great movie, and he turned out a really good performance in that. And I did hear an interview with him where he said, that they specifically wanted him to just use his own voice for Garfield, no special, techniques or accents or anything. So it basically just sounds like Chris Pratt doing a Garfield impression. But honestly, you get used to it. I thought it wasn't too distracting, but in that little 90-second clip or whatever in the trailer, it just didn't sound right to me. The real issue I have with the voice work is actually Nicholas Hoult as John. Now, I will say John's not really in this all that much because it is mainly a story about Garfield, Odie, and Vic, and doing these this heist kind of thing. And John is looking for them, but the movie does not feature John very much. But I really and I love Nicholas Hoult. I mean, way back from when he was a kid in About a Boy and all the stuff he's done recently, but he just did not work for me at all as John. But all right, look, I am a Garfield, you know, lover from back in the day. I read the strips when I was a kid. I loved the show Garfield and Friends. I have the DVDs of it, and I thought the Bill Murray movie was horrible. I saw it one time and I did not care for it. I get what they were trying to go for there, but it didn't work for me. This to me is interesting because look, we think of Garfield as being very lazy, loves to eat, and we have, a lot of those kind of things in the beginning of this. And as he goes on these adventures, and is trying to show his long lost dad, like, hey, I don't want to do this. I like being at home. I like being with John. I like being comfortable. So it's not like he's gung ho about doing these adventures, but for the sake of the story and stuff, he basically has to, or some bad stuff's going to go down for both him and his father. So taking him out of his usual environment, I actually think worked. It was a bit of a risk because usually we do see him just kind of lounging around, but we've done that. We've had 40 years, 45 years of the comic strip of him doing that. That's mostly what he did in the Garfield and Friends TV show. This reminded me actually of some of those primetime specials that CBS would run in the 80s, specifically the Halloween one, because that was very adventureful. And I used to watch those all the time. So this actually reminded me a little bit of that kind of stuff, where Garfield is not really, ready and willing to do all of these things, but needs to get from point A to point B to point C, and so I actually kind of respected that they did that. They made it an adventure film, and with that in mind, I think it actually kind of works. Now there is definitely like a Mission Impossible kind of theme here, literally and figuratively. At one point, they actually play the Mission Impossible song, and it's kind of funny that Ving Rhames does one of the voices, because he's been in some of those Mission Impossible movies. So, that's kind of fun. And they did a little Top Gun Maverick lampooning, which I think parents will enjoy. And the other thing that I think this movie has that other movies sort of in this vein lately, like Minions type movies or some of the DreamWorks stuff, where the idea is just to, throw jokes fast and furiously, have it be, really, really quick paced, over the top stuff. Not that this movie is slow, but I think it took its time with the story. And yes, there were jokes, and some of them were very funny, and I really liked the randomness of some of it. It reminded me of some of those classic Garfield cartoons, or maybe even going back further, some of the Looney Tunes gags. There's a lot of sight gags in this movie, and makes sense because the director, came from that world of animation. So I think he made sure that nothing on the screen was really, like accidental. If there's a place for a joke, let's do it, but let's also let the story breathe and speak for itself. So in that case, I actually found the film quite entertaining and a little bit emotional, too. I definitely got choked up when we were learning a little bit more about the reasons that Vic left when Garfield was a baby. And Samuel L. Jackson, I thought, played him really well. This movie is a bit of a surprise for me. I don't really like to go into movies with preconceived notions, but sometimes it is hard, especially with a property like this that's so beloved. It's easy to say, oh yeah, I've got a big chip on my shoulder, this is gonna stink, Chris Pratt again, like, oh my god. But honestly, there's a lot about this movie that does work. There's certainly some things that don't, but overall, I actually had a pretty good time watching this. I'm not sure if parents might like it even more than kids, because I do think a lot of the jokes are more geared towards parents. Like I said, it's not quite as in your face and flashy as Despicable Me stuff and, some of the recent DreamWorks things. So I don't know if kids are really going to take to this or not. Certainly, I don't think they really care much about Garfield, not like my generation does. But overall, I thought this was a fairly pleasant surprise, and I believe the Garfield movie with a B. And it certainly leaves the door open to sequels, which, if this is successful, they're going to start pumping those out. I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. All right, thank you for watching Dave Reviews It. I'll see you next time. Bye.